Welcome back to Do You Love Your Mom and Her Two Multi-Hit Attacks? Interview, Episode 5. Excuse me. Yes. This one covers episodes 9 and 10. Yep, back to the series for the first time in 3 weeks. And at least it wasn't an entire month between episodes. Yeah. So this one, basically, is coming from Book 3 of the series. Yes, Book 3. And like in the case of the last, the previous 8 episodes of the series, each book covers roughly 4 episodes of the series, which is perfectly fine. Not really a big issue with that. So, in the case of these episodes, and by the way, it still has this thing where we have really long titles for these episodes. Oh gosh, yes. The first one, episode 9, is go, whoa, there's a pleasure plate in a place like this. Well, pressure plate in a place like this. Well, I'm not stepping on it. No, I'm saying I won't. Well, in the case of the last 10 episodes, where we actually had a debut of 2 new characters, this one we had a debut of 1. Aminet. Yes, the anti-mom. Oh boy, this woman. Oh boy. My gosh. Makes her debut in episode number 9. Let me bring up what this character looks like. And I at least gotta say this, at least in the anime actually bothers to actually have her in the correct attire. Yes. And from what I can tell, she's the last new character for the anime. Alright. We're good. Alright, I'm going to bring her up right now. Let's see. Here we go. Excuse me about that. Yeah, that's take just a minute just to bring up here. Alright. The show off what this woman looks like. And as far as I can tell, the book never explains why she dresses like this. Here she is. That's our new character. Yes. Her nickname, she's one of the 4 fiends, and she's a betrayer of moms. Yes. And this character is, clumsy. Yes. Well, before we get to her, we actually have the 5, with Nick basically, when Nick joined the team. Yeah, they officially moved up from having 4 members to 5. And of course, Memiko decides to do a survey. Yes, a survey. 9 episodes in. Yep, see how everything's going. And then, oh look, monsters coming. And of course, Mystico and Wise try to handle the monsters before Memiko finishes. And apparently, nope, Memiko notices it and she takes care of that's it. And Muchi just basically secretly plot despite the fact that Wise can hear her, that she really wants to be the only sage in the whole group because she's the healer. So, then of course they go to a next town, where they're confronted by a bunch of women. Who are these women? A bunch of moms. Well, actually, before they get there, they get let's just say an advertisement for a dungeon. Oh boy, a dungeon. It's an isekai, and we gotta have a frickin' dungeon. It seems like, though, that this is the most popular thing we have in anime when it comes to fantasy stuff. I would say just almost every single isekai has featured at some point a dungeon. Konosuba had a dungeon. The only one I can think of that never had one off the top of my head was ReZero. That one, as far as I can tell, never had a dungeon I can think of. Maybe they did later on in the books, but were they in the anime? Nope, no dungeon for that one. That's one of the very few I've seen where there's no dungeon. Everybody think, okay, what about Cautious Hero? That's an isekai. Yes, as far as I can tell for that one didn't have a dungeon. Nope, it really didn't. The most known ones that don't have dungeons are the two with dungeons in their name, Is It Wrong to Girls Dungeon and Hidden Dungeon Like Enter. We also have Freya, which the big thing about that series is a bunch of dungeons. Aside from the fact that the main character is with like about 8 women. Yep. Yeah, and they're all like various different people, like a couple humans, a vampire, and stuff like that. A lot of basically anime I've seen. Well, in the case of even non isekai, this is in the case of, well, aside from the two fantasy ones, well, Black Clover has had a dungeon. As a matter of fact, it's had several. Yes, it had several dungeons. Dungeons are very popular in fantasy. So aside from ReZero and Cautious Hero, that are fantasy-driven series that are set in another world, almost every single one I've covered have generally had a dungeon. Heck, even Fairy Tail has handled a dungeon. Yes, Fairy Tail had one. You might ask, okay, what about Naruto? I think it did once. I think it may have for Naruto, but One Piece, oh no, because that's an action adventure series, not a fantasy one. But a lot of the fantasy or isekai ones generally do have dungeons. They're very popular. And the way this one is, it's appearance-wise, it looks like a rip-off of the one from Is It Wrong to Girls Dungeon. Except that one's made of stone. This one outside looks like it's made of metal. Yes, seriously, it's made of metal. But if you look at it, it looks like a carbon copy from that series. No, seriously, it seriously does. I am not kidding about that. That's what this dungeon seriously looks like. Let me think if I can bring it up here. Because this dungeon, like, oh my gosh, it's like, wow, okay. Because, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, I'm looking up on the website and see if they have it on here. Yeah, this take me just a minute, excuse me. Yeah, I'm trying to find the picture of this damn thing. Yeah, I'm trying to find it here, but it's proving to be very difficult to find this thing. Ah, here we go. Here's a good image of it. Yeah, I found it. Yeah. yeah, this is what the dungeon looks like. And you look at that. Man, that looks exactly like the one from Is It Wrong to Girls Dungeon? Yeah, it looks like the same exact thing. And it's like, I'm not going to blame the anime for this at all, but I could exactly blame the studio for ripping off that particular one. Because shape-wise, it's the same exact thing. Heck, the top is hidden from clouds, just like Is It Wrong to Girls Dungeon, because a lot of our series have dungeons usually like underground, not a freaking tower. Yeah, or at least they're inside of a mountain, but an actual man-made tower. That is, in the book, they mentioned this tower is like, this dungeon's over like 100 floors. Yes, just like that series. Oh yes, so they get to town, and they cry about the moms because their kids are missing. So like, okay, so they get to the dungeon. Looks perfectly normal. I mean, the exterior itself looks very similar to the one from Is It Wrong to Girls Dungeon. They go inside. The exterior looks exactly the same. Get inside a little bit, it kind of looks like it, but not exactly. It's like, once you get inside, it's a completely different thing. It just, the exterior looks exactly like it. So, they come across this various thing you see in video games a lot. You step in this particular portion of the floor, and you get an item. Mystico, when he steps on one, he gets a healing potion, basically full MP. Porta, I don't think she gets, I don't think she gets, no, actually, she does get a key. Yeah, Porta gets a key. Wise gets her magic sealed, typical. Memiko gets a wind thing. And by the way, the anime censored this a bit. Yes, they did. Because in the book, you actually see Memiko's panties. Yes, you get panty shot here. Yes. Oh, by the way she's holding her dress now, it looks very similar to a real-life pop culture thing. Yes, there is this popular image of the late Marilyn Monroe in the film 7-Year Itch, where she's standing on top of one of these grates where the subways are in New York City, and her dress goes up. And from what I heard in real life, her husband, who was baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, hated this scene. Because, from what I've heard, you get a chance to see Marilyn Monroe's panties. Yep, as a person who's not married to her, it's like, oh yeah, I get to see her panties. And yes, you do see Memiko's panties in the book. In anime, nope, censored by a white light. Yes, at least censoring in this series makes a lot more sense than the one they did in To Deliver Darkness. Heck, they censored freaking groping. Seriously, it's like, oh, blind light, like over a hand over a woman's breast. I'm like, that's not necessary. So, and apparently it's one of these jump to their level type of things. It's like, okay, that's quite interesting. It's better than using stairs. It's almost like an elevator, because Memiko mentioned that possibly an elevator. So, they get to the next floor, and of course Mystico is embarrassed by seeing his mom's panties. And he's like bumping the floor, and of course Serena, who actually came in this episode, and he came across Aminette, and it's like, ha ha ha, I am Aminette, the betrayer of moms, one of the 4 fiends. And she's about to come downstairs, and she trips, and she lands on her butt. Oh yes. Yeah, and we actually see her butt smoking. No, seriously, that's what it's doing. It's smoking because she basically hurt her rear end. She gotta explain who she is. And she grabs her up and she trips, landing on her shins. Which, yes, that would actually hurt. And then apparently, these apparently are the kids, according to Sarisa. These are actually kids that were forced, that basically were recruited to join her. They clear the engine, they go out, and they get themselves a guild. Yep. As acceptance for basically accepting this quest, you get a whole building to build your own freaking guild. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. As far as I can tell, this is the first anime we come across where we see the start of an actual guild. Because a lot of the time, actually all the freaking time, whenever you come across these anime that have these adventure guilds, they've been established for years. Like, for centuries or decades, they've been around. would see a startup one. Like, okay. Except the place is falling apart. Like, the floors need to be completely ripped out and redone. Like, the staircase has got barely, like, no railing at all. Like, there's holes in the roof, holes in the walls. Like, yeah. Based on how much damage this house has sustained, by U.S. currency, my estimation to fix this particular, well, guild house, mind you, would take an estimation of about 10 to about 100, possibly even $50,000 to fix this place. Or it could be as high as even almost, actually I don't think 100,000. No, I don't think so. Based on how big the place is, I mean, it's not completely destroyed. It's still basically somewhat livable, even though it's got a hole in the roof. But my estimation, it's going to take, like, estimation by U.S. currency, this will take about 50 grand in order to fix this place. Yep. And, of course, Memiko offers cooks a meal. And, of course, they go shopping for materials. Like, okay, maybe it's some regular thing we see in fantasy. Nope, it's a Home Depot. Even though it's not called Home Depot, but clearly it is. More like an IKEA. Yes, it looks like frickin' IKEA. Yeah, with the boxes and, of course, the shopping cart. It's a frickin' IKEA. And they're about to check out, and they're like, oh, crap. And then they leave because, oh, an assassin was sent to the guild house. And it was some shady salesman. And, of course, Porta praised the crystal ball, which apparently it's a bomb. I'm thinking, okay, that's not a bit unusual. I've seen that before, so don't worry about that. What is unusual is the sound it makes to announce it's going off. It's a baby crying. And Memiko diffused this thing just by patting its top of its ball. Head patting. I'm like, okay. And then they decided to go out and have some lunch with Japanese-style lunch, with the rice balls. No, in case you might ask, I have never tried these things. I've had rice before, not rice balls. So, by the way, not the first anime I've seen that actually had rice balls. You might ask, what was the very first anime I actually watched that actually had rice balls? The answer is Pokemon. Yep, Pokemon has got rice balls. That was the very first anime I actually watched where they actually had rice balls. This was this has been like, I would say like almost every single anime I come across that we have these rice balls. Usually the way they look like they're triangle shaped, and of course they eat it, and it goes, oh look, another explosion. And look, here's the real assassin. The anime came by, it's like, yeah, that was not the real assassin. Like, okay, so it's another assassin. And the assassin, the main salesman over the scars face, same guy came back, except we see his face. And then you have Memiko. By the way, you actually have Wise, Porta, and Muchi putting on maid outfits, but Mystico said, no, my mom is not putting on that maid outfit. They're like, oh man, that's when they go shopping, come back, and then of course we have, like, okay, we 3 guys. Okay, we want you to make us a meal. Like, okay, perfectly fine. And it's fried rice. Yes, I've had this stuff. By the way, is this just me, or is this like second anime where I come across where we have fried rice in the anime? Because Restaurant of the World just had an episode featuring fried rice, and this one with ham. Like, okay, and of course these guys mentioned basically like, oh look, fried rice and ham, and fried rice and hot dogs. Okay, I like that. That's actually quite interesting and tasty. But what I thought was, ew, that's disgusting. Fried rice with canned tuna. I'm like, who the heck would eat this stuff? Like, come on. Rice and tuna? That would not taste very good. And then the guy's like, okay, I want you to satisfy me in bed. And of course, everybody, including Mystico, obviously thinks that he wants Memiko to have sex with him. I'm not kidding about that. That is what's heavily implied here. And it's like, okay, time to service me. He's like, okay. And the way she's grabbing, it's almost like she's going to grab his pants. But no, she just grabs. And of course, both Mystico and the guy's like, what the heck are you doing? And then she just basically sings him a good night lullaby and puts the air to sleep, which is so hilarious. And then they leave. And then we have another one of these hot spring scenes. Because, of course, have their strategy meeting. And, of course, Porta still puts her bag on top of her head. Girl, you'll either have that thing with you. It's not really necessary. And Ambinette basically decided to come by this. And, of course, Muchi points out, though, that she smells. Like, her skin must smell rough. She was like sea salt. Because apparently she's been bathing in the ocean. Like, that's stupid. Why would you bathe in the ocean? That makes no freaking sense. So then, of course, later on, like, they eventually, like, apparently the three guys at home, or as a thank you, they give him a gift. Don't know what the gift is. Though, I'm thinking, like, okay, Mystico, you've already handled the sad situation. Could you go back to your IKEA and grab your stuff and pay for it? No. By the way, the bomb that tried to blow up the place did very little damage. Was not even much damage. I was like, wow. It's like, oh, it's like an explosion. Did like, were any walls damaged? Well, I can tell the anime. No, it's just an explosion. Maybe because the explosion went out all the holes in the walls, anyways. So they have the moms. By the way, the mom is called Mom's Guild, which yes, it was called this in the book too. So at least the anime got that part right. So they work with the town moms, and then eventually they decide to go into thinking like, oh crap, I left my windows open, food time's like, okay. And of course, we have Wise being a teleporter. And like if she's getting a bunch of MP bottles, care about, so she's able to do that. And Porta basically is giving some sweets because she's a little girl. And you have Muchi, who's basically being the healer. And then she basically darkly says, why don't you use this particular thing? And then I guess they decide, screw it, we'll just go in the dungeon anyways. So they go in, and then we see Ambinette basically where she's repairing it, she trips and sets the bombs with explosion. And of course, before everyone goes in, like, oh crap. Like, and of course, everyone's like, oh, the exploring dungeon is fun. You haven't set foot in the damn thing yet. I mean, my gosh, Go, it's so funny. Yeah, and that's pretty much the 2 episodes. Like, wow, 20 minutes talking about 2 episodes. The only thing I possibly didn't like about this is the fact, oh yeah, we have a freaking IKEA. Yeah. So, how about say this episodes? I like them. Okay, so that's episode of you. Next time, more episodes. Okay, next video. Bye.